You said, the ownership model. People work in the ownership model these days. This is my car, this is my house, this is my this thing. And we have to overcome it. But it's hard, especially how, everything works. So in a very, practical way, how do we, get out of that mentality?
There is a positive side where you own something, you take care, you become proud of yourself, But ownership also has a negative side because you worry about that thing. And if it starts to decay, you have to maintain. And at the same time, that can give you happiness, can also bind you, even a relationship. Sometimes people are very happy because they have a very nice wife or husband, and sometimes they get very heavy because they are in a relationship with this wife or husband. So deciding to live outside ownership, it's actually becoming bigger than the thing that you own. It's not that you should not own. It's just that you need to be more than that. You need to be more than the house you have, the car you have, so that you can take properly care, but you don't overexcite yourself because you have a car, because this does not mean anything, If you really think about that, it makes a lot of sense to the mind, I have the privilege of having a car. I have the privilege of being married. I have a privilege of having this job, But I'm bigger than that. I'm not that. So it's actually a way to bring vairagam, to bring detachment, But when we say detachment, people think is that living with nothing. Living with nothing, it can also be attachment. Because they are so attached to many things that they want to get rid of them so that they cannot suffer, So it's not about being away from the world. It's about being in the world with a different mindset, Understanding that everything has a positive and negative side. And then ownership is neutralized.
And in terms of, translating the Bhagavad Gita and Upanishads, Acharya-ji, can you just tell us some very important things that you've realized and we should know about it?
Yeah. So the first thing is that, talking also to the Indian audience, knowing Sanskrit does not mean that you know the teachings of the Gita. And many people will just read the Sanskrit texts with some translation here and there and think that they know what is there. But the knowledge is Gupta, it's hidden. It's not something that you take from the words in the literal meaning. You need the proper guidance. So all these texts are supposed to be studied with a guru. And sometimes it's not about the meaning of a word. It's about living a meaningful life that will make that verse make sense. So if you read the Bhagavad Gita, maybe in 2 hours you can read like half the Gita. If you study the Gita, you will spend 1 hour, 2 hours in one verse to understand that one verse, So it's a completely different thing to read a translation or read the book by itself and study the book with a teacher. So this is a very important message to say. The second thing is that everything that's written there is not written in a way to be literally truth. Because there is a context where things are said. For example, I can say, going to India, no, food is a paradise. Food is not paradise. This is a way of speaking that we understand in the context, because I'm a vegetarian, I live in Brazil, there are so many spices, so it's like exalting the value of Indian food, And the text is full of these moments, If you see the Shiva Purana, you say that Shiva is the outmost of everything. If you go to Ganesha Purana, say Ganesha is the outmost. In Vishnu Purana, Vishnu is the outmost everything. Now it's Shiva Bhakta, is fighting the Vishnu Bhakta and saying, look, the text is telling that he's stronger. But this does not make any sense, from a logical and more fundamental perspective, God is just one.
Yeah.
And it may have different faces, it may appear in different forms. How can a person at the same time say that God is one and say that Shiva is better than Vishnu, whatever? This does not make sense. So we need to look to these texts, not trying to figure out by ourselves, we need the Guru, and we are not looking literally to what is written, but the knowledge that is trying to convey. So this context of each sentence and each explanation is very important. Some people will say that the Bhagavad Gita is, supporting himsa, violence. After all, Krishna is telling Arjuna to fight, But Arjuna is in the middle of the war, He's not telling a person at home to go fight the neighbor. That's not what's written there. He's in the war. There is a context, There will be times where in the Upanishads, for example, he will tell, do this mantra and you gain moksha, It's not because the mantra gives moksha, but because unless you have a prepared mind, moksha is not possible. And he's talking to a person that's not prepared. So you want moksha, do this mantra. So this context is what is necessary so that the interpretation of the text is in the right place. And then the Gupta, like the hidden knowledge that is there, just reveals itself to you. It's a very beautiful process.
It just makes me realize how important Guru-Shishya relationship is.